LinkedIn presents.
For transgender people, there's a very clear before and after in your life. I think that though this is actually true for everybody, and no matter who you are, I think if you live long enough, there's a sense of these various bridges that you cross over, after which things really began to feel different.
It's Thursday, and I'm Michael Kovnat. Welcome to the Next Big Idea Daily, the show that helps you live smarter, healthier, and brighter. So let's talk about one of today's hot-button issues, gender. More precisely, let's talk about the space between genders. That's the messy, magical ground that Jennifer Finney Boylan explores in her new book, Cleavage: Men, Women, and the Space Between Us. Jennifer is a celebrated author, professor, and advocate who has lived as both a man and a woman, and she's uniquely positioned to examine how gender shapes our memories, our relationships, even our snack choices. She's here to share 5 big insights from her book right after this break.
From LinkedIn News, I'm Leah Smart, host of Everyday Better, an award-winning podcast dedicated to personal development. Join me every week for captivating stories and research to find more fulfillment in your work and personal life. Listen to Everyday Better on the LinkedIn Podcast Network, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
From LinkedIn News, I'm Jessie Hempel, host of the Hello Monday podcast. Start your week with the Hello Monday podcast. We'll navigate career pivots. We'll learn where happiness fits in. Listen to Hello Monday with me, Jessie Hempel, on the LinkedIn Podcast Network or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Finney Boylan, and I'm here to talk about my new book, Cleavage: Men, Women, and the Space Between Us. Here are my 5 ideas. Here's the first one. Gender affects everything. Our sense of food, our sense of memory, even our sense of self. So, the changes I experienced in going from male to female were not only the obvious ones, like learning not to wear pearls before 5 and how to do a French braid. Over time, as the obvious things faded, more subtle and more important things rose to the surface. By the way, I should say that even now, 25 years after transition, I still don't know how to do a French braid, and I think I'm going to cross that off the list of things that I have to worry about. It's just never going to happen. And actually, if that's going to happen, my wife Dee Dee, who I called Grace, and she's not there, she's the one who's going to do it for me. It's probably worth mentioning that Dee Dee and I have been married now for 36 years, 12 as husband and wife, and 24 as wife and wife. I mention this because our marriage and the love that we share is something that's at the center of Cleavage, the new book, and we have been on a long road together. That road continues, and the changes in our marriage are among the things that are perhaps most interesting. Some of the other things that were affected by my change of gender are things like my sense of memory, my sense of friends. For instance, I think I remember everything now. Things that used to just slip my mind are now embedded in my heart forever. And when I talk to some of my male friends, I'll say, remember that time we were all eating pizza that time? And they look at me like, what? That was 20 years ago. I can't believe you remember that. My sense is, I can't believe you forgot. And then there's a sense of food and body image. I didn't used to own a scale. That's how much I weighed mattered to me before transition. Do we own a scale now? Oh yes, we own a scale. And I think about my size, even here in my 60s, when a very logical question to ask is, what possible difference could it make? It still matters to me somehow. Everybody should have one life rather than 2. So for transgender people, there's a very clear before and after in your life. I think that though this is actually true for everybody. And no matter who you are, I think if you live long enough, there's a sense of these various bridges that you cross over, after which things really began to feel different. A challenge for us, though, I think, is that sometimes we are unable to connect who we've become with who we've been. Like, at my age now, in my 60s, I look into the mirror and I think, oh my God, who the hell is that? Who's that little old lady? But it's not only a function of age. I think all of us wonder, where is that person I was? Where is that child? Where is that young person? And yet, if you don't somehow connect who you've become with who you were, I think you can wind up traumatized. You can end up a person without a past. So how do I connect who I've become with who I was? I do it by writing, by telling a story, by using storytelling to weave the fabric between the past and the present. It's one of the great things that stories do. They let us know not only who we've become, but who we were. Things for transgender people have gotten both easier and harder. So 25 years ago, when I embarked upon transition, it was literally like finding your way through the wilderness, or like finding someone through a series of connections like the French underground. There was one person in the state of Maine, where I live, who would be an endocrinologist to transgender people. And the only way you could find out about these people was by whisperers and connections, by somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody. It was really hard. Now that path is better blazed. There is a gender center in Portland, Maine. There are centers for transgender medicine around the country. So in that way, things have become easier. But on the other hand, things have become harder because 25 years ago, nobody had received formal instruction on how to hate me. When people encountered me for the first time, encountered a transgender person for the first time, when I came out to my 85-year-old evangelical Christian Republican mother 25 years ago about being transgender, she didn't give me a lecture about trans women in sports or the dangers of social contagions. My mother took me in her arms and she wiped my tears away, and she quoted 1 Corinthians by saying, "These three remain, faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love." With increased visibility has come increased blowback. So now we are on the radar. Now there are people who use us as the whipping girls to get everybody all upset. Some people say that it was the issue of transgender people and Donald Trump being for you rather than they, them, that tipped the election in 2024. Is that true? I don't know. But I know that things are much harder now in some ways as a direct result of the progress that we've made. The process we go through in revision on the page as writers is similar but not identical to the process we go through in our lives. And by this I mean that I think about revision as both a human being and also as a writer. As writers, we all know that doing multiple drafts is the best way to improve your work. In fact, at Barnard, where I teach, I have a class called Invention and Revision, in which I have students do the following. The first assignment, they write a 7-page story. We come in, we do the workshop thing. Second assignment, turn that story into a 21-page story. Third assignment, take the 21-page story, turn it into a 3-page story. And then the final draft is a fourth draft of any length whatsoever, literally from 1 page to 100. And so in making my students do this, I have them, in this very formal way, come to understand that there are lots of ways that a story can be, in the same way that there are lots of ways that a life can be. As Jennifer Boylan, I am indeed embodied now in a new draft from the one I was before. And I'm very grateful for the changes that I've made. But all of us go through this. It's not a process that's unique to transgender Americans. And in a way, that's the hopeful part. Needing to do a new draft does not mean that you're a failure. It means that you're someone who has an opportunity, a new opportunity, even late in life, to become someone new, someone better. All of us are just one day away from our next draft. Love will prevail. This is very much in the spirit of my mother, the one who took me in her arms and quoted 1 Corinthians to me. This is part of the conversation I had with her when I came out to her as trans. I said, "Mom, isn't it going to be a scandal for you when the neighbors find out that I'm your daughter now?" And she said, "Well, quite frankly, yes. But I will adjust." She said, "Love will prevail." And so, for me and for my family, that's become our mantra. Love will prevail. And yes, I know that often other things prevail, and not only for transgender people, but for everybody. Sometimes the things that prevail are hatred and disappointment. Sometimes the things that prevail are violence and misunderstanding, cruelty, bigotry. But in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome, as the old song goes. Love will prevail. It has in my life. I hope it will in yours. And I hope that in reading Cleavage, men, women, and the space between us, you find that in the example of one life in which love did help to conquer all, you find ways in which that can be true in your life too.
Thank you, Jennifer. All right, listeners, you can get yourself a copy of Cleavage at your favorite bookstore. And if you'd like to have smart ideas like this right in your pocket, go to your app store and download the Next Big Idea app. It's got thousands of big ideas from hundreds of big authors. I'm Michael Kovnat. See you tomorrow.